Hey everybody, welcome to tonight's Brain Chat. We are here with Jodi Sternoff Cohen. She's the brains behind Vibrant Essential Oils,
Vibrant Blue.
Vibrant Blue Essential Oils. She has a book out and she's coming out with another book, so she's already a best-selling author. She's an award-winning journalist, a functional practitioner. She practices nutrition. She is the founder of Vibrant Blue Oils. She's combined her training in nutritional therapy and aromatherapy to create unique proprietary blends of organic and wild-crafted essential oils. She's helped over 50,000 clients heal from brain-related challenges such as anxiety, insomnia, and autoimmunity. And for the past 10 years, she's lectured at wellness centers, conferences, and corporations on the topics of brain health, essential oils, stress, and detox. Super important stuff. She's been seen in the New York Times, Wellness Mama, Elephant Journal, and numerous publications. And her website, vibrantblueoils.com, is visited by over 300,000 natural health seekers. That's some website view goals every year. And she's rapidly become a top resource for essential oils education on the internet today. So welcome and thank you for being on Brain Chat.
Oh my God, thanks for having me. I love what you're doing. I think you do a great job of putting really complicated information out in a really simple way for people to understand.
Thank you. I try to just get it out there. So,
It's so helpful though. I mean, people don't realize they're like spending a fortune on their food, they're meditating, they're doing in theory everything right, but they're kind of forgetting about their brain.
Yes, that's exactly the reason we do it. So thanks for saying that. You can't forget about the brain, and it's just the most important organ in your body, in my opinion.
In my opinion too, and also it's not isolated, right? The brain talks to the body talks to the brain. If the communication isn't flowing, it's kind of like a freeway with an accident that blocks both lanes. You're not going to get anywhere. And that's, I think, when disease occurs, when you don't have that open channel of communication.
100%. So can you give a, I know we talked a little bit about your backstory before, but can you talk a little bit about how you got into essential oils and how you started Vibrant Blue Oils?
I started Vibrant Blue Oils purely by accident. I had been in journalism and marketing, and my second child was much harder than my first. He was always difficult. Had no impulse control, and I kept going to parenting classes and thinking, I'm doing something wrong. And then one day we were on a group play date and he was being really well behaved. And then someone gave him a Ritz cracker and he picked up the shovel and hit the kid next to him. And my friend who was sitting next to me on the park bench said, you know, that's so interesting. I've never seen him do that before. My brother was on Ritalin his whole life and it was just about food. So you should see a nutritionist. And I thought I could do that. Like I've tried everything else. We took him to a nutritionist and our cue for him used to be like, look at my nose. And, you know, he was like all over the place. Mm-hmm. So he said, take him off corn, soy, and dairy. The next day we said, look at my nose. He's like, oh, okay, mommy. I mean, it was like day and night different child. And I had been exhausting myself for 2 years trying to figure out what I was doing wrong. And the fact that it was as simple as changing his diet was life-altering to me. So I went back and studied nutrition and I thought I can, you know, it's really hard when your kid is all over the place, and to have a calm kid, it's life-altering. So I was doing that and I was treating a lot of people like myself, you know, moms with young children who were adrenally exhausted and really not assimilating their nutrients. And then my bottom fell out. My husband at the time was super depressed and needed to be hospitalized. So suddenly I became a single working mother with 2 preschool age children, and it was pretty unsustainable. I had zero energy and nothing that I knew how to do was working. And yet pharmaceutical drugs never worked well for me. So I had a good friend who I had done a lot of work for, and they came over with a huge box of essential oils and said, these are going to help you. You know, and I thought, okay. And I said, well, what do I do? And they said, no, you're smart. You'll figure it out. So I tested the box for my adrenals like I would test for supplements, and 5 oils tested well. And I thought, well, that's confusing. What do I do now? And then I thought, oh, wait, I can combine them. So I made my first blend basically by muscle testing the way I tested for supplements, put it on my low back, and got more done in that one day than I had in the entire 2 weeks before. I cleaned the house. I went to the supermarket. I walked the dog, I made a great dinner, did all the laundry, put it away. It was like a superpower day. And then that night I got the kids to sleep and I was, of course, not falling asleep. And I thought, well, wait, maybe I can make something for my pineal gland. And I just kept observing needs and filling them with oil blends. And then when I felt like myself again, my friends all wanted to know what I did. So they were trying it on themselves, on their clients. And then I went online and was really surprised that no one was really looking at it through that lens of balancing organ systems and regions of the brain. And the way they were looking at it was so complicated that I was almost grateful that I didn't have the mental energy to start with research, because I would have felt unqualified and I never would have tried.
That's amazing. My wife, she'll be watching this, and I'm sure she's gonna want that blend for me, the adrenal blend, so I can get all the chores done at the house.
Yeah, we'll send you a couple care packages.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's how great things are born, through necessity, right? So you
Yes.
some self-discovery and self-healing, and it led you down the path. And you also have a
Right.
cool story as to the name of Vibrant Blue Oils, right?
Yeah.
The jars. I love a good story of, how
No,
you built.
I do too. I didn't, when I started, I didn't mean to start a company. I just meant to share something that helped me, because I'm a mom, I'm a daughter, I'm a sister, I'm a friend, I'm a nurturer. And when I see like, that's a, there's a hotel that I love that's having a sale, I'm like, oh, you should book it now. I've never seen this price so low. Like, I just like to share things that are helpful. So the oils that showed up at my door were in blue bottles. And when I was younger, my mom liked to go antiquing, and my sister and I thought it was incredibly boring. And so she had the brilliant idea that she would encourage us to collect something, and then we would be less bored and she'd have more time in the store. So my sister picked thimbles and I picked those antique blue bottles, like Maalox. And I just thought they were pretty. I really liked the way it looked when light shone through cobalt glass. So just making up a name, I wanted it to be about vibrant health. I really always liked the image of the seed of life. And I just thought, oh, vibrant blue oils. I wasn't thinking I was naming a company. I was just kind of doing a filler, to put it out there in the world, and it stuck. And the more I learn about the brain, it's interesting to me. A lot of the blue oils, like blue tansy, is kind of amazing. I find them to be the most helpful at balancing the brain. And I haven't looked that deeply into vibrations of color and brain waves, but every time I question what works well, it's always a blue oil that seems to really harmonize and balance the brain in a unique way.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So on the topic of brain, I know you just mentioned you're coming out with a new book soon. And of course, this is Brain Chat. So can you tell us what you're doing with essential oils to help with the brain?
Yeah, I believe that what really helps the body heal is putting it in balance and getting out of its way. And one of the areas of the body that gets the most out of balance is the neck, which is the highway in and out of the brain. And obviously, you need a chiropractor to help you with structural alignments. But what's in the neck? It's the lymphatic tissue, it's the vascular system, and it's the nerve. Not just any nerve, but the longest and most important nerve in the body, cranial nerve number 10, or the vagus nerve, which is really your information highway between your brain, not just to your gut and your heart, but pretty much to every organ in the body. So it's sending messages from the brain to the body, how much pancreatic enzyme to release, telling the gallbladder to release bile, the small intestine to assimilate the nutrients, and then also messages back up from the body to the brain. Okay, we have enough cortisol, we're full, we're satiated, you don't need to keep eating. And so if you think of it as a highway, two-way communication, if anything is blocking those messages, like imagine a car accident on a highway, traffic backs up, that's when all disease occurs, because the messages aren't getting sent. And vagus nerve stimulation and vagal tone are really becoming hot topics where people are recognizing, oh yes, the vagus nerve needs to be communicating. And they're coming up with ways to stimulate it, some of which are kind of invasive, like you can get a pacemaker-like device implanted right behind your ear. This is kind of one of, if you stimulate any part of the vagus nerve, you stimulate the nerve. This is why deep breathing and yoga is so helpful, because the vagus nerve innervates the lungs, right? Or it innervates the intestines and the gallbladder. So if you do a coffee enema, you can stimulate it. You can get an expensive pacemaker-like device implanted, 2 surgeries, one in your chest, one in your neck. You can gag yourself, you can splash your face with freezing water, you can practice breathing, or you can take a stimulatory oil, you can carry it in your purse, it's a little bottle, and just put a tiny amount right behind your earlobe. And that does the same thing. It opens up the messages and the signals between the brain and the body. And when the brain and the body are communicating, it's almost like biking, downhill with the wind at your back. It's so much easier than biking up a steep hill against the wind. It just opens up the communication channel, and then everything else can follow and flow.
Love it. Yeah, even some of the non-invasive vagus nerve stimulation devices, like the electrical stimulation on the ear, I've had several patients tell me that it just doesn't feel good. And
Yeah.
yeah, and so it's like it's just not a comfortable feeling, even though you're trying to do something good for your body. So applying an essential oil to an area where you could stimulate the vagus nerve is way less noxious, it seems.
It's way less noxious, and even with children, there were years where I would try to cook kale in every way I could find, and they never liked it. I never really found a great way to feed my kids kale, but they have never once complained when I've applied essential oils, just because it,
Nice.
it smells good and it's a nice sensory experience, I
Mhm.
think, for everyone.
So if you're applying a specific oil to that area, what's in the oil that makes it stimulatory in nature?
Right. Well, the one, I mean, it's almost like a math equation, right? How
Yeah.
many ways can you make things add up or subtract them or divide them to get the number 20? There are invariable combinations that you could use.
Okay.
I love a combination of clove and lime for 2 reasons. Clove is super stimulatory. Lime has really small molecules, so when you combine them, it's kind of like a really nice marriage. You get a very stimulatory blend with super small molecules. And right here, this is where the vagus nerve is really the most accessible to the surface. So applying it there, it doesn't have far to travel through the intracellular matrix to get to the nerve. The other thing that I really like about it is that clove and lime are both used in dentistry to kind of clean out toxins. And one of the challenges that a lot of the practitioners I work with are finding is what they call vagus nerve toxicity. So imagine all of the microbes that we have in our mouth. We have amalgams, we have cavitations, we have root canals, and all of these toxins are draining along your trigeminal nerve. And if you
Mhm.
think of an intersection, your trigeminal nerve and your vagus nerve intersect, and so they get dumped right there. And nerves have a really high affinity for metals and toxins. So all of a sudden, that signal that's supposed to be going freely, it's like there's a traffic backup. So if you can use something like anything that helps to detoxify, clove and lime, there are some creams for the lymph that you can apply that help to make more space for the vagus nerve so that the toxins can drain, so it's not as much of a backup. You're not only stimulating the nerve, you're actually helping to detoxify it so that it becomes less of a problem over time.
Very cool. Yeah, I was actually reading a vagal nerve article on Parkinson's and how I'm sure you've seen the research and stuff out there, how Parkinson's starts in the gut. But in one of the articles, they described how these little pathogens actually crawl up the vagus nerve. The way they described
Yes,
it, I was like,
yes.
that is so creepy.
Well, Dietrich Klinghardt thinks about it as, they're smart and they want the most oxygen-rich, nutrient-rich blood. And so that's why they hang out in this area. And that's actually why some of the veins that deliver the oxygen into the brain or drain from the brain, they get congested because there are parasites and pathogens hanging out there. And so the more you can kind of open the vasculature, like Tatis Karazian adds black pepper to all the supplements he formulates because it's very opening and expansive. And
Mhm.
when you add that in, it again, biking with the wind at your back, it just amplifies your body's ability to assimilate everything.
Ooh, I like that, biking with the wind to your back. Um, so we touched on the application of essential oils a little bit. What about aromatherapy, the use of the essential oils for smelling?
You know what's interesting? This is another good story. We live in Seattle, and my daughter is in high school and had to find a scientist to study. So she went on this phytolaureate.com and found this amazing Nobel Prize winner who lives in Seattle who studied the olfactory system. And this woman noticed that the cool thing about the olfactory system is it does bypass the blood-brain barrier, which only really small fat soluble molecules can get through, like essential oils. But it goes directly into the brain. Like if you think of the five senses, your sense of smell is the only one with a direct access to your limbic system. It's almost like the other four have to go through a switchboard and go to the thalamus first before they go to the limbic system. And it's because it's a primary safety response. We used to be able to smell the smell of predator odor, and that would alert us that we were in danger, and that would trigger our whole stress response in the body. So this woman, Linda Buck, that was what she was obsessed with and studying, were how were different odor messages received in the body. And then she had this other idea, are there any other odors that cancel out the signal of the danger response and the fear response? And what she found is that rose essential oil cancels out the danger response, which for any of us, when we felt anxious or afraid and we smelled rose, we knew we felt better. We just didn't know why. That's why. So I find that fascinating.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense to me. I was reading a little bit about like aromatherapy for brain, and it talked about the direct connection of the olfactory system to the limbic system, um, and then also to like the memory system. So
Yes.
if
Well,
you
that has to do with safety too, right?
yeah,
Because if we smelled someone and it turned out to be a predator, we're going to remember that smell so that we're better prepared next time. Memory is really a function of safety. Remembering what foods were safe to eat, what we want to avoid. That's how it started. It's obviously evolved, but yeah.
no, I love it. That's awesome. So one thing I did read too, I wanted to ask you. So I was reading a research article, you know how in neurodegenerative diseases, you start to lose smell as one of the first signs
Yes.
of brain compromise. And so they use the peanut butter test for Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. Um, what can you do to use essential oils to help make the brain better and to try to slow things down? Because the brain is a big receptor and it needs the sensory stimulation. So
Yeah.
to make it
Yeah.
better.
Well, that's a combination of things. It's really about toxicity in the brain and inflammation in the brain. And I mentioned that the neck is the primary channel for detoxifying the brain. As you know, the brain detoxifies when we sleep. It shrinks by as much as 60%, and it's almost like a car wash. The lymph system in the brain couples with brain cells called glial cells. So it's called the lymphatic system, the glial lymphatic system. And it rinses the whole brain, and then ideally the debris, the toxins, drain down the neck in the lymph system. But what happens often is that lymph is congested, and the brain is a hydraulic system. If there's congestion here, the toxins here can't drain down, so they stay in the brain and they're irritating and they cause inflammation, and we start to lose cellular function, like our ability to smell. So one of the easiest things that you can do is start to really open up your lymphatic system. And especially, it's interesting, you would think that both sides drain at the same rate, but the left side actually drains 75% of the lymph from the brain. So if you
I
really,
noticed you kept going to your left ear. I,
what's that?
I noticed you kept going to the left side. I was like,
Yeah, yeah. And so you can use oils. Castor oil is great for moving lymph, but you really want to do something to open up your drainage on your neck and then also over your left clavicle. You can follow where the lymph nodes are congested under the armpits, along the bikini line. But that's the one thing, if I could just encourage everyone to move their lymphatic system, you can use essential oils, you can use castor oil, you can dry brush, you can do massage. There's so many things that you could do. That is like that, and stimulating your vagus nerve. Those are the two things that I think would help people preserve brain function a lot longer.
ooh, I love it. Yeah, I always think of like the way you're describing it. It's like if all the New York City garbage people went on a strike and all the garbage builds up in the brain, you got to clear out. You got to create a path to clear out the garbage. That's
That's a really great analogy. I have lived through New York City garbage strikes. It is not a fun smell. Think about the olfactory stimulation. That's olfactory overload.
yeah. My brother said he lives in Brooklyn and he sent me pictures. I'm like, man, that's crazy.
Yeah, it smells even better, especially in the summer.
So for me, I'm not very well versed. Oh gosh, yeah, with the heat, it's gross. I'm not very well versed in essential oils, but in the clinic, we were using the essential oils to try to stimulate just brain. Sometimes we try a little bit of right brain, a little bit of
Yeah,
left brain. Um, how? What are some other ways that we can use them around the house? Like,
yeah.
what are your thoughts on aromatherapy? We use a diffuser with different
I
types
think it's
of
good,
oils.
but I think it can be overused. What people don't realize is essential oils are super concentrated, so they're really strong. You wouldn't be if you had cramps or something, you wouldn't take a Motrin every 5 minutes for 24 hours. You would take one and be done. So I think if you're going to diffuse, I would encourage you to do it for a 20-minute interval, maybe twice a day, but not more. And in talking about, to answer your question about applying specific oils to specific parts of the brain, one thing our colleague Titus Chu, I love this. He has an example of when you're having an anxiety attack or a panic attack. He talks about how that is the right frontal lobe that's overreacting. And so, what you want to do is bring balance to the left lobe as well. So, just smelling something, it could be lavender that you get from the supermarket through your left nostril, really helps to bring balance to both sides of the brain and then helps to calm you down. The other thing, since I have children that are doing homework, anything that you can do to stimulate your prefrontal cortex, like peppermint oil, it's a little bit hot, but it's a good one. Just applying it kind of on the temples, that can help you really focus. And there's an interesting research study that if you smell something while you're studying, like say you've got a kid studying for a spelling test and you're writing the spelling words and smelling the peppermint oil, if you smell the oil before the test, it will help with your recall as well.
I've seen that before. Yeah, I used to sneak out my peppermint oil before a test in school. That's great stuff. Any other like, so you mentioned your son was taking Adderall, is that correct?
I never put him on medication because
Okay,
he was
okay.
still little, and
Oh, your son's son.
I'm such a hippie. I was really trying to avoid that.
Good. I think that's
Yeah.
besides like using peppermint oil for attention and focus, are there any others that you would recommend? Or
I love, if you really think about it, what we really are looking for is resilience, right? Like the example I use is you can be driving in traffic one day and someone cuts you off and you don't really care. It's like, whatever, maybe they're in a hurry. Other days, the exact same situation happens and four-letter words fly out of your mouth. The only difference was you and kind of how resilient you were to outside stresses. So the more resilient you are, the easier it is to navigate homework or challenges or stressful relationships. So the thing about the vagus nerve is it's really our safety response. It's the on off switch between our sympathetic fight or flight emergency state and our parasympathetic rest and digest state. And when we're in that sympathetic state, we're really focused on fleeing emergency. Our pupils get really huge. All of the blood goes from our digestive and detox organs to our arms and our legs so we can run really quickly. We're not able to connect and have a great conversation. We're not able to stop and focus on homework. We could die, so we need to survive. So
yes.
the main thing that if people only take one takeaway from this, if they can use essential oils, we have a blend called parasympathetic that's done for you. You're welcome to blend clove and lime, but just putting it behind the vagus nerve or on the vagus nerve behind the earlobe, like even just before you eat something so that you're actually in that state when you can assimilate your nutrients. If you're anxious, I carry it with me all the time. It fits in my pocket. I love it. But just helping people get in that calming state of the nervous system where all healing can occur. The vagus nerve is the anti-inflammatory channel. And as you know, inflammation is really one of the biggest problems in both the body and the brain. If you can turn off inflammation, you have a much better chance of healing. So I feel like that is almost like before you paint a house, you put the primer on. That is the primer for all healing. And it's such a unique way to use essential oils to really shift your whole physiology of your system into a healing space.
I love it. Yeah, you can't. I mean, you can't study if you're being chased by the proverbial bear or whatever. So that's huge. For application, like how frequently is it just as needed or?
Yeah, I'll show you. I mean, basically, when I have people start, I really just tell them leave it by your toothbrush and just do it when you brush your teeth, like before bed and after bed. So I just flip the bottle a tiny amount and just put it right behind the earlobe. I do it on both sides. Some people believe that the vagus nerve on the right side correlates with the organs on the right side, like the spleen and the pancreas. And the one on the left would be the left side. Oh, wait a minute. On the right side, it's sorry, the gallbladder and the liver. Spleen and the pancreas is the left side. But I have found that the vagus nerve kind of travels to both sides, so it doesn't matter. If you have amalgams in your mouth, you might want to do it on the side where the amalgam is because that's probably where the toxicity is building up.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, so you can start out 2 times a day, but then carry it around in your pocket if you're
Yeah.
like going out in big crowds and you need something to bring you back to the foundation of the vagus nerve.
Yeah. My daughter is an athlete and she gets so nervous before events that she won't leave. Her entire team actually now is pretty addicted to it because you can really feel the difference. It really helps you calm down pretty quickly.
I literally just had someone message me on our Instagram account about sports related anxiety and depression. And they were asking like, what, is there any research on this? What do you recommend you do? And I'm like, of course I'm going to the vagus nerve, but you can't walk around with the transcutaneous vagal nerve stimulator while you're
Yeah.
talking. So that's
Yeah, she rows crew and they even like leave it in the boat. It's
nice. That's
yeah.
awesome. I
I should
love it.
actually see like check their times when they use it, compare it. We've had some athletes because it's the vagus nerve that also tells the muscles to expand and contract. And so we've had a lot of athletes that have mentioned that they can lift more or that they have greater endurance when they use the parasympathetic blend.
So
So
your next book is going to be on sports performance.
yeah, maybe. I think I used to run marathons. I think my endurance athlete days are a little bit behind me, but you know,
Nice. Oh, I feel your pain. I signed up for one with my brother in November. I'm regretting that decision. But well, thank you so much. I mean, this has been super duper informative. I'm probably gonna snag one of those essential oil blends for myself
oh
because
yeah,
I've found that I've just found in the clinics the biggest thing is if you can dampen the stress response, increase the vagus nerve activation, and get people out of fight or flight. That's the foundation for healing. And
exactly, exactly.
you
And it
can't.
shouldn't need to be complicated or painful or uncomfortable.
Yeah, 100%. It should be as simple as doing stuff like this. So I think that's awesome. Is there anything else you wanted to touch on?
No, I wanted to give everyone that's listening a free gift if we can put a link below, just like a checklist to see if the parasympathetic blend or stimulating the vagus nerve might be beneficial to them.
Awesome.
Um,
Yeah, I'll make sure to add that in. And then
okay.
where can people learn more about you?
Yeah.
Yeah, or what is your website just for people that are
Oh,
listening?
everyone can reach me at Vibrant, like Vibrant, blue, like the color, oils.com. And if you have any questions, I love getting customer feedback. So you can email me at info@vibrantblueoils.com and we'll get back to you within 24 hours.
Awesome. Okay, I'll make sure to add all the links in the video.
And
And then
we have practitioner accounts and practitioner trainings.
perfect. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So you work with all different types of practitioners, chiropractors, nurse practitioners,
Yeah,
natural
medical doctors.
medical doctors.
Just because the vagus nerve, it's amazing. I've been shouting this into the wind for 7 years and all of a sudden it's catching on and people are noticing, oh, if we can balance the vagus nerve, we can support breathing, we can support the heart, we can support digestion, we can support immunity, detoxification, anti-inflammation. It's pretty endless.
Yeah.
And also there's been a lot of we have a lot of Lyme patients and parents of autistic children. Honestly, if you can get them kind of in balance and in the parasympathetic state, they feel better. It's pretty miraculous.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, you've seen it yourself by working with your son, so that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we'll make sure to get all the links in, and then you did mention you are writing a new book.
Writing healing the brain with essential oils, which will go into a lot of detail about the vagus nerve, and then also using oils for cognitive function, like where to apply on the prefrontal cortex, a lot about draining the lymphatic system, and also supplying the brain with oxygen and glucose, and kind of opening up that channel so that you have, blood oxygen and stimulation, all the things you need to really function.
Yes, that is definitely necessary. What
Yeah.
when is it coming out? Is it ready or?
Not it's still
Okay.
being written and edited, so probably 2021. But yeah, we'll do this again. I'll send
Yes.
you a bunch of
We'll,
oils. You'll have your own experience before then.
we'll get some updates for sure. And congrats on all the stuff you're doing.
You
Thanks for
too.
thanks for doing everything that you do to help people heal naturally. So, and we'll definitely connect again.
I would love that. Thank you for having me.
Yes, thanks so much, guys. All right, bye.
Bye.